Have you ever heard of a movie production so chaotic that it actually resulted in two completely different films? I mean, one was a total flop that nobody remembers, and the other became an immortal masterpiece. Well, that's the wild, true story of the 1965 classic Guide. Let's get into this incredible tale of ambition, chaos, and cinematic genius.
So here's the journey we're about to take. We'll start by looking at how one novel created these two very different films. We'll dive into the big Hollywood dream that kicked it all off, then untangle the absolutely divided production. We'll hear from the furious author, listen to the drama behind the legendary music, and finally, we'll see how these two movies ended up with such wildly different fates.
All right, let's set the stage with the central paradox of the whole Guide production. I mean, just look at this. The contrast is absolutely staggering. You have the English version, The Guide, which was a complete critical and commercial disaster. It was so bad it was basically lost for 42 years. And then you have the Hindi version, Guide, which was a massive blockbuster, an enduring classic that swept the awards. It's a total night and day difference.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth does the exact same story lead to a forgotten failure on one hand and an all-time classic on the other? Well, the answer is a wild ride of clashing cultures, artistic battles, and just a whole lot of chaos.
It all begins with the vision of one man, the actor and producer Dev Anand, who had this huge dream of making a truly international crossover film. So picture this. It's 1962. The seeds for this project are planted at the Berlin Film Festival, where Dev Anand meets an American director and the Nobel-winning author Pearl S. Buck. A little while later in London, Dev Anand stumbles upon the perfect story, R.K. Narayan's incredible novel, The Guide. He was so completely captivated that he flew to Mysore, met Narayan in person, and promised him they were going to conquer Hollywood together. The stage was set. But right from the very beginning, you could see the cracks forming. There were two completely different versions of how this all started. Dev Anand remembers this big, grand, energetic phone call where he sold this vision of Hollywood stardom. But the author, R.K. Narayan, he remembered it as a much more modest affair, a formal letter from some producer in Bombay. This little difference in perception, well, it was the perfect foreshadowing for the massive creative collision that was about to happen. Okay, let's get into the actual production and see how this grand dream turned into a logistical nightmare. The plan, which sounds crazy now, was to shoot two versions, one in English, one in Hindi, at the same time. Yeah. It did not go well. The director's chair for the Hindi version was basically a revolving door of chaos. First up, Dev's brother Chetan Anand was supposed to direct, but he clashed with the American team and just left. So they hired Raj Khosla, but then the star, Wahida Rahman, flat out refused to work with him. So finally, they begged Dev's younger brother, Vijay Anand, who was actually horrified by the story's themes. He said no, twice. He only agreed on the third try, and he had one huge condition. And the film's star, Wahida Rahman, she summed up the absurdity of it all perfectly with this quote. It just captures the complete and total deadlock they were in. It was a real mess. Vijay Anand's condition, that he could rewrite the script from scratch, well, that became the single most important moment in this entire production. This wasn't just a tweak. It was a fundamental reinvention. He was determined to make a film for an Indian audience, not just some carbon copy of an American one. And you know what? That decision changed everything. So as the filmmakers finally started to find their new direction, the man who wrote the original story, R.K. Narayan, was watching all of this happen, and he was getting more and more furious about what they were doing to his creation. And he did not mince words. He wrote this scathing essay for Life magazine, and he titled it The Misguided Guide. That title alone tells you everything you need to know about how he felt. He thought they had completely, fundamentally missed the point of his novel. And Narayan's complaints were very specific. First, they moved the story from his beloved fictional town of Malgudi to Rajasthan just because it looked more exotic. Then they took his complex heroine, Rosie, and basically turned her into a standard Bollywood spectacle. But the real killer was the ending. They totally changed his subtle, ambiguous conclusion into this big, obvious, crowd-pleasing miracle. He felt they traded literary soul for commercialism. And his role on set, he was wryly told he should be seen and not heard. Really, the whole conflict boiled down to two completely different visions. Narayan wrote an intimate, satirical story that left you with questions.
The Anands, on the other hand, wanted to make a grand, emotional epic with a clear message of redemption. They were just fundamentally making two different things. It's no wonder they were so at odds. Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about one of the most celebrated parts of the Hindi film, its music. And no surprise, just like everything else in this production, the story behind its creation is packed with drama. Right in the middle of composing, the legendary S.D. Burman had a serious heart attack. He told Dev Anand, "Look, just replace me. Don't delay the film." But in this incredible act of faith and loyalty, Anand stopped all music production. He said, "No, we'll wait." And that loyalty paid off in a huge way when Burman recovered and delivered an all-time classic score. But the drama was far from over. The first lyricist, Hasrat Jaipuri, wrote this opening line for a song. The Anand brothers weren't really feeling it, and they asked him to change it. Seems like a small request, right? Well, Jaipuri was so offended he quit the film right on the spot. So they had to hire another legendary lyricist, Shailandra, and in a twist that you just can't make up, the first thing Shailandra did was insist on keeping that exact same line. He knew it was brilliant, and today it's one of the most iconic lines in all of Hindi film music. And the result of all that chaos and loyalty, well, it's one of the greatest soundtracks ever made. I mean, these weren't just songs, they were absolute masterpieces. Each one was perfectly woven into the film's story, just elevating every single scene. It's an incredible testament to the genius that can come out of conflict. So let's bring it all together. Let's look at the final outcomes for these two very, very different films that were somehow born from the very same story. When you lay it all out, it's so clear. The English film tried to be a direct, faithful adaptation, and it just failed miserably. The Hindi film, however, was a liberal, culturally specific reinvention, and it had that iconic soundtrack, and after weathering some initial controversy, it became a massive, beloved classic. The crucial difference, really, was the courage to transform the source material, not just translate it. Dev Anand himself, the man who started it all, he summed it up best. He knew it was a completely crazy thing to do, a huge gamble from start to finish. But his reflection really captures the spirit of the project perfectly. Sometimes you just need that little touch of madness to create something truly great. And all of this leaves us with a fascinating and maybe unanswerable question. The Hindi version of Guide is a masterpiece precisely because it strayed so far from the novel. It succeeded by, at least in the author's eyes, betraying the source material. So what, if anything, is owed to the original creator when their work becomes the seed for a completely different yet brilliant piece of art? It's a question that really gets to the heart of what adaptation is all about.